I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is 5:30. Item 5, presentation, Internal Audit Department Quarterly Board Update. So we will get Mrs. Shoesmith in here.
All righty. Good evening, President Grona, Dr. Micah, I don't know if he's still in here, and executive staff and guests. With the recent updates to the board operating procedures, which included the addition of a new section that's specific to internal audit, I will begin meeting with you all on a quarterly basis here in a special meeting. And I'll provide you updates regarding our completed audit work, as well as any work that's in progress and future projects that are planned. These quarterly updates will serve to enhance transparency through the communication and continue to build two-way trust in our services with the board. Tonight, I present to you an update of the audit work that my team and I have completed since my last board update, which was on April 11th, so a little longer than a quarter. So tonight's update will be a little longer than usual, encompassing work over the past approximate 5 months, as my update's just been on hold for a couple of months while everything was being finalized. I've provided each of you with just a list of the audits that I'm going to discuss this evening. I'm going to take one audit at a time. I'll provide you with just a summary of each audit, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. I have placed the audits in a specific order, beginning with those that were more broad in scope, which I believe can appropriately be discussed here in open session. Toward the end of the list, you'll see audit topics that become more narrow in scope, some even mentioning a specific campus, a specific department, possibly positions or personnel within those areas. So when the discussion of these audits or any questions that are posed begin to mention any specific or identifying information about personnel, I'm happy to continue our conversation in closed session. So just wanted to put that out there. So I'm just going to start with the top and roll down. Okay. So first we have the district fleet vehicle review. This was an advisory project that was requested by Dr. Micah in my meetings that I hold when I'm planning the audit plan. Executive staff and the superintendent can give their input as far as that goes. So this is one that just an advisory services that came about. The objectives of this review: compile district vehicle information and statistics about our vehicles, and specifically our white fleet, so no buses. This was just all the other vehicles, apart from that, trucks, cars, such. We were looking to evaluate the efficiency of the usage of our vehicles and the distribution of our vehicles throughout departments and campuses, gathering tons of information, both systematically as well as conducting a survey of each department specifically designed for them to answer about their vehicles. So we gathered information such as age of all of the vehicles, the current mileage as of the date of the survey, usage, and we had daily, weekly, monthly, variety of different usages, driver assignment, and any maintenance history that they were able to provide. We analyzed these assignments and usage per campus and department, kind of did a bunch of breakdowns just to provide as much information as we could to executive staff. And in that review, we found a wide range of vehicle age and usage. Some, surprisingly, a huge percentage of our vehicles were over 20 years old, quite an aging fleet. As well as some just minimal inaccuracies with two systems that we use to track our vehicles, which is what was one of our recommendations to to improve. We observed areas where these vehicles were either not in use, so just sitting parked, or didn't have a driver assigned, so maybe that's why they were sitting and parked, mainly due to lack of staff in that department. For example, construction. That was a large group. They don't have as many staff members currently driving those vehicles. That was the biggest finding as far as why do we have a set number of vehicles just sitting unused currently. The recommendations that we made were to assess both departmental and campus needs for their vehicles, to compare them to the current use and distribution, possibly make a plan to transfer assets between departments to even those out so they could be utilized, to optimize their use. And then we suggested a district-wide data review of these two systems that I mentioned to ensure that the data is accurate, complete, no redundancy. That's mainly what we were seeing is the same vehicle listed in both systems, but maybe the VIN number was incorrect. Or, nothing major, scary, more just not as accurate as it could be. So just a good scrub of both of those systems to ensure that they're in alignment. And a caveat that is not in the report, soon after that report was issued, in July of 22, internal audit was made aware that finance and operations had already gotten together and had started to make a plan for that review of the system. So I don't know where it is in the process, but it's ongoing. That's my summary for the first one, and I think it would be best if I just ask for any questions as we go. Yeah, sure.
That's what I would do.
Sure.
Okay. Any questions of Ms. Shoesmith regarding the fleet one? Nope. Okay, next.
Okay. Alrighty, so we have warehouse inventories and observations. These 4 memos, really, that you would receive, they'll look different than the rest of our work. This is because we do this work for our external auditors, and the format of the work is a little different as far as our report goes. It's just a report to file that goes to them. So just so you know why it looks a little different. We internal audit conducts these inventory counts every year in the summer. We do inventory counts, and we also observe the warehouse staff doing their inventory. We conduct our accounts of all 4 warehouses, so we have school nutrition, copy print services, the general warehouse, and the operations warehouse. We have managed these inventories for all four of the warehouses at the same time that representatives from each warehouse are conducting their counts. Items are judgmentally sampled from the long list of inventory. You can imagine, this is an example from the general warehouse. There are flags, pencils, paper clips, basketballs, everything under the sun that our campuses and departments can order, just like they could order from Office Depot or places like that. And I'm not exaggerating when you can get the count down to a paper clip, not a box of paper clip. They are so accurate with their count. It's amazing. It's really fun for us to go and count. So with that being said, we judgmentally choose our sample to ensure materiality, and we're not just looking for paper clips, for example. So while we're out, we also do reverse testing, standard for any type of inventory count that we do. So while we're looking for the items that we're supposed to be searching for, we also look for the same amount of items that are on the floor, and then we go back to our office and compare that to the list. So you look at it in 2 ways to ensure that both the list and the floor are accurate. And as usual, year after year, inventories do a great job. Minimal non-material discrepancies were noted in 2 of the 4 warehouses, totaling between them $72 worth of stuff out of the millions of dollars worth of content. So it literally was 0.01% of an error. So They hate it. They want it to be perfect. It has been in the past, but so it's great work. And that's all on that one.
Any questions? No.
It's so fun. It's one of our favorites, yeah. And the folks are great in the warehouse, and we have a good time. So get to find lots of unique things.
Your definition of fun and my definition of fun are, I think, slightly different. But kudos to those folks for keeping a good inventory.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, they take so much pride in that in those warehouses. It's great. Excuse me. The next one on your list, I don't really have a long report about it necessarily, but we provide other assistance to the external auditors throughout the year. And one of those things is we do bank confirmations for them, bank and investment confirmations for our accounts. We prepare the letters, send them out to all of our banking institutions confirming balances. I think y'all also got a letter from me regarding your own kind of conflict of interest thing. So we just do some preparation for the external auditors during the year. So that happened. I'm not sure if you have any questions regarding that, but no report comes out from that. So just wanted to let you know it was conducted. Next, the work order system review. This was another advisory project that was just completed weeks ago that was requested from Dr. Mitchell to review and analyze our maintenance work order system, specifically looking at the system and how efficient it is, how well it works, not looking at necessarily how to input or how work orders are conducted, looking at that actual system itself. Looking at a handful of objectives here. Ensuring that policies and procedures, guidelines, handbooks, documentation is in place to provide guidance on how to utilize the work system, how to input, timelines, just information regarding the work order system. Looking to see if the system allowed us to determine if maintenance work orders were handled and completed in a timely manner, also in a cost-efficient manner. Seeing if the system could track that, provide data for that. And lastly, could the system provide us information about each work order and the supplies used for that work order, the amount of time worked, to account for the supplies and everything with a specific work order, for example. So looking to see if there were reports, data that could be derived from the system so that we would have that knowledge about our maintenance work orders. The work that was performed, interviewed key personnel in the areas. Obviously, Dr. Mitchell was interviewed just to look for any guidance that he had specific to what he was looking for. The folks in MIS, they are the ones that built the system for us, and so looking on the data side, and then as well facility and maintenance on the actual work side. Evaluated the data that was available. There was somewhat limited data available, so additional reports had to be asked for and kind of built for us to be able to make some determinations. So asked for those reports and gathered the data that was available. And a few things were determined. There was a lack of the ability to track a work order from start to finish. Let me not misspeak. You could track it from the beginning to the end, would be date stamped, but throughout the process, you could not get dates of how long it's been sitting waiting, how long has tech been assigned to it, the whole process as far as the efficiency of the time management. Only the entry and closed end logs were dated. There was minimal cost information associated with any work order. One thing that Dr. Mitchell asked if there was any tracking of the mileage of the technician driving to the campus or department and back, and if that was figured into the efficiency of a work order, and there was no tracking of mileage or fuel usage, anything like that. Also looking for the lifespan, or kind of goes along with the maintenance history of equipment. For example, an HVAC system at I can imagine how massive, a massive HVAC system at a campus. The hope was the system would be able to say, HVAC system at ABC campus was maintained on this date in the past and is due for maintenance on this date, just some tracking dates for that, and that is not captured in the system as well. Also, there was no report or data that we could analyze to show a final cost of a work order, looking at everything, the technician, fuel, parts, labor, all of that, to look at efficiencies. And then there is not a user guide on either the requester, the person inputting a work order, principal, for example, needing something fixed. There's no posted directions on how to do that, or a guide as far as what to expect, what things mean, what certain indicators mean. There's limited data as far as that goes. So we obviously recommended that was built, and if any type of improvements could be made to the system to add these efficiencies, tracking of cost, that would be recommended.
So do you know if any of that has changed? Or
This was just issued 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if
Dr. Mitchell? Is this in progress, I'm guessing? Do you have an estimated completion? Is this going to be a couple months, a full year, to get some of these recommendations incorporated into the system?
Part of the reason I asked her to do this was so that we could look at the system that was currently in place and whether it's something that's salvageable, that we can work with MIS to make better, improve, to get where we want to be, or are we going to have to go and possibly purchase one off the shelf at hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we're just kind of seeing where we're at, and this was really what this review was for, to set that baseline.
Great, thanks.
And some of the reporting that you were looking at, like the costs and that, do you know, were you able to find, is that a system limitation, or is that our own internal process limitation, as far as we just didn't put the information in there or hadn't ever really done it? So
I don't want to misspeak. I'm thinking for a moment. I did not do this audit,
Sure,
so
no,
I'm. I think it's both. I can go back in the work papers to gather, but
and
The system does not have the capability to do that yet.
Okay.
So
And that's
that
what
would be
you're
something
looking
we'd work with MIS. That they're saying we can give you these reports, we can create these dashboards, and so we're going to want to see if they can actually provide that. And if not, then we may have to go outside.
kind of an upgrading to the programming of it. Okay.
yeah. So I'm oversimplifying it, but if we
Sure.
had the module and just weren't using it, or
No, sir,
it
yeah.
just didn't have the module.
Okay. Yeah. No, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Done.
So this was a system that was designed several years ago, 2017.
Correct.
And so when Dr. Mitchell came in, and I think we've discussed it several times, is really trying to look at the efficiency and effectiveness of the current work order system. Mm-hmm. And so where Dr. Mitchell began was really taking a look at it. I think it's important to note that MIS has been short several programmers now for a while. So whether we can even design it to do with what we're asking it to do, or whether he has to go out and look for a program, is really kind of where he's at right now. Mm-hmm. But this was the first step in kind of a process to finding out how can we streamline and make this system either work better for us or find something that works better for us.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Ms. Hugh Smith?
Okay. Next on the list, you won't have a report along with this one either, but like I mentioned in my presentation for the audit plan, I have instituted unannounced cash counts and safe inventories back into the fold this year at targeted times throughout the year, maybe before a long weekend, maybe before a holiday, maybe just in the middle of the week, but to ensure that our campuses are counting money, getting it to the bank in a timely manner, not leaving contents in their safe over the weekend. It's nothing new. They know that is the standard protocol. So we did 2 of those. I have them calendared out. So the first holiday came and went, Labor Day. So my team went out and did 2 of those reviews the Thursday before Labor Day. I did a ranking or a review of all campuses. There's system reports that I can pull to show who is deposited when, essentially. So you can tell then, oh, they haven't deposited for weeks. They're probably going to have a lot of money on their campus. So looking at that, kind of chose wisely as far as picking a couple to go to that had not deposited in quite a long time. And both campuses didn't have a huge amount of money by any means on their campus. One of the bookkeepers, I'm trying to recall. Oh, yes. One of the bookkeepers had been out on medical leave for a number of days. So that was the reasoning why things were sitting for a few days or a couple weeks. And then the other mentioned that they had been pulled to cover kind of the front office, a vacant position. They'd been stretched a little thin, essentially was their reasoning, and they hadn't gotten to their deposits. I checked both days after, and of course their deposits went in. Truly, they didn't have as much there as could have been, so it wasn't huge. It wasn't thousands of dollars sitting on a campus or anything, but so word will spread, I'm sure, and they'll get better as they go along. But just wanted you to know. I don't know if you have any questions regarding that, but they're happening, so I just want to let you know. Alrighty, next one is the annual conflict of interest review. This review is conducted every year of our employees, and the end of the school year, April, May. A survey is sent out asking 4 questions. Essentially, do you or a relative work for a vendor? Do you or a relative did you receive gifts from a vendor? Do you or a relative own a business? Or does anybody in your family own a business that's a vendor? So it's all relation to vendor type questions. And this is something that annually we conduct of almost all of our employees. There's a handful of job families that have 0 decision-making with any type of purchasing, so they can be excluded. But essentially, it's almost every job family. 5,500 employees received the survey last year, 5,523. 70% response rate. It gets tougher and tougher every year because our technology department does a wonderful job of letting our employees know, don't click on anything in an email. It might be a phishing scam. And so we do our due diligence ahead of time to send out tons of pre-emails informing them, you're going to receive this email. Please answer the survey. And they still call and ask questions about it, which is good. They're doing their due diligence, ensuring they're not going to click on something. But I think that was a little bit, it's always a hesitancy of a handful of folks. But of the results, of the 3,800 employees that responded, if they answer yes to one of those 4 questions, then that then is considered an affirmative response. I said yes to one of these questions, so they could possibly have a conflict of interest. Some of them, I think most employees are, they over-report just to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So we look at each employee that says yes to at least one question, which was 53 employees. After I looked at those 53, 21 of them really did have a potential conflict. So some of them could be excluded. I wish I could have brought an example, but it's very easy to determine they do not have a conflict of interest. So of those 21, then I reach out to those employees and get the disclosure, conflict of interest disclosure. That is what the regulation requires, is that they just disclose the conflict of interest. So I got the proper disclosures from all 21 employees. 2 of those 21 in the past school year required further action due to transactions being conducted with the business of their relative. And if it's included in your report, if you'd like more information about it, I'm happy to talk about it in closed session. I'll leave it at that.
So does anyone have questions?
I have one question, but it'll be
Okay.
back there because it's a specific, because
Sure.
it gets
Okay.
done, but it can wait for that.
No, no.
Just one. Thank you. Clear.
That's it on that one?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
70% response rate. Just curious why it's not 100 or
I have.
what's our goal?
I mean, always 100, I would say for sure. I'll say that I keep a log of the calls. The day we send out the survey, the phone starts ringing for about 4 days straight, and it's employees from all over the district. I just got this email. Can I click? And I logged that. I didn't bring it with me, but it was over 60. It was 60-something calls of people confirming, can I click on this? I'm not sure. Or I don't think I need to answer this. Just ensuring that they're doing the right thing. There's also a handful that get rejected. They just left the district, or the email is still in the download. It's immaterial, but there's a handful that are no longer with the district. The email doesn't exist. I'll say that I sent out, I did everything I could do working with technology to send out an email. I provided them an example, a screenshot. They, planning and performance as well as technology provided me kind of a mock-up of what the actual email was going to look like. So I gave them an example and bold and highlighted and said, this is what the email is going to look like. You're going to get it on this date. Please answer it. I don't know what else I could do apart from that to ensure that they answer it.
So do you ever do a second request?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
2
okay.
weeks out, yes. I can't recall the
Maybe-
exact time frame, but yes, I did a second
Maybe
roll.
leverage Dr. Mike and executive staff to go, no, really, we want you to do this. It's 4 questions. Please do it.
Yeah,
It's all.
sure.
Maybe just one more way, because I agree, if we can get closer to 95 or 100,
Yeah.
close to 100%, you may not get there, but
Yep.
just in case. But thank you for doing all that work, though, trying
Yeah,
to get it. 'Cause
yeah, happy to.
Does the form indicate that if they do not have a conflict, they do not have to submit it?
No, it says no matter what, answer these 4 questions. And it's just yes, no, yes, no. And it's a Qualtrics survey, super easy. We're used to utilizing it. Our folks, we see them all the time now. And it's literally clicking 4 radio buttons. I mean, it truly takes 30 seconds to answer it, or maybe a minute to answer it. So, and the time frame, I did move up the time frame. We just need to do it kind of at the end of the year to capture the answer for the last school year. Did you do this? So it's always the perfect window of trying to find, you don't want to do it too early because something could happen after the fact, but towards the end, teachers are checking out and going on summer vacation. So I did produce the survey, I don't recall, but I think it was April. I moved it up. It used to be in May, and I think I did it right at the end of April, hoping to capture some of those. And then we did a second rollout of all those who had not answered 2 weeks later or something like that. So any who didn't answer on the first go-around got it again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I received something in the mail.
Yes.
Okay, that was you?
That was our external auditors asking that question, but I do that on behalf of them. Yes. So
just
it's
had
a
this
similar
horrible
thing,
thought.
but it's not this. Correct.
Okay, all
This is
right.
for employees, and so that's your version of it. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Sure. Yeah. You got it.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna make it asterisk. Next, White Middle School. This was a standard campus audit. due to principal change, a key personnel change of the principal. So that's what bubbled them up on the ranking as far as their risk. New principal name for this year. So we review our standard review for campus review. We look at their student accounts, the campus accounts, balances of those accounts, the sponsors to make sure they're appropriate, all of their deposits, all of the checks that come out of that, those student and campus funds, expenditures, purchase orders, fundraising efforts, and record retention. And from that standard review, 3 findings that are all very normal, minimal, just accounting error type errors, with 3 expenditures over $2,000 without a form that has to be signed by the principal. We see it in almost every campus audit. There's maybe one that gets missed and they don't have the form. The principal signs the check, so it's just this extra form that is required for anything over $2,000, just for extra additional information purposes. Those expenditures, everything was appropriate. What they purchased was appropriate. It was paid timely. Like nothing else was wrong. And what the purchases were for, in case you're curious, athletics clothing, so like all of the PE and athletics clothing, one big purchase for all of their PE. So it was one big chunk for PE clothes for the middle school. Scholastic book fair, which is always a big chunk. And then a San Antonio Spurs tickets for their band, and it was $2,016. It was right there at the edge of it. Again, all 3 things were fine. Fundraisers, there's another form that very rarely gets used. It's called a sales accountability form. And for 2 fundraisers, this form was not utilized. Essentially, this is a form that is used to track the planning of the fundraiser, pricing, the deposits, the funds coming in as the fundraiser is happening, and then at the bottom, it's a reconciliation and a profit analysis of the fundraiser. It's been a constant challenge to have consistent use of this form. And I'll say, just as a caveat, so y'all know, I've been working for a couple of years now with MIS as well as Budget and Finance, myself and Susie Lackhorn, working to get that form turned into an app. So our teachers and principals can just do that more efficiently. Got all the way to the testing phase, and we just don't have the staff to finish it up. So it's almost there. We went through and did the work on that. So coming soon, hopefully this will be, for all of our campuses, an easier task. Just a sidebar. Deposits not made in a timely manner. Deposits are supposed to be made from a campus to the bank at least weekly, is the terminology. There was one deposit that was on campus for 6 weeks. Part of that was over Thanksgiving break. One of the week was over Thanksgiving break. And it happens. Teachers hold on to checks, and then it gets to the bookkeeper, and then they hold on to it for a little bit, and sometimes it takes them too long to get it to the bank. So that was one of the circumstances. And then lastly, 3 purchase orders that were outstanding for greater than 30 days. And 2 of them were due to supply chain issues. They're still waiting on the product, so it's just sitting there in limbo waiting to be paid because we haven't received the item. That one was like that. 2 were eye exam vouchers for needy children. Our family specialists, along with nursing, have vouchers that they can give to needy kiddos that need to have an eye exam and glasses. So they get that for free with these vouchers. And there's a purchase order that's associated with that voucher. These particular 2 students had never used the voucher, didn't get the eye exam, the coupon essentially, and it was old and needed to be just canceled. They were no longer valid. So they'd just been sitting there waiting all school year for them to use it. Very rare, they're usually always used. So that was our findings there. The standard recommendations are made with these, which is continued training, ensure that your teachers are knowledgeable. You have training at the beginning of the year with sponsors and things like that. So,
Any
pretty
questions? Okay.
Oops, excuse me. Next in line, hotline update. I'll do my best to tell you what I can here, and if you want to know more, but we obviously continuously manage our fraud hotline. Because I'm spanning over 2 school years right now, I'm just going to break it out for you. So last school year, 21-22, we received 6 total complaints. 4 of them online, where they go online to the website and enter, and 2 via our voicemail. We have a anonymous voicemail in our office. This year so far, 2 complaints, both by phone. So a total of 8 that I have to report, essentially. Of them, 3 were general, non-specific, non-actionable, just complaints. If you'd like to know more detail, I'm happy to share that. And then 5 were enough detail that we acted upon them, meaning most of the time we forward it to the appropriate person. So again, I'll be happy to tell you that later if you'd like. Also on the side, since I've taken over, I've ran some functionality tests of both of our online as well as our phone system. I feel like we should have some more calls happening, and just historically, they've dropped some, and I want to ensure that everything's functioning correctly. I worked with telecommunications, installed a new answering machine. Ours was a little bit old. It was still functioning, but I wanted to ensure there was nothing wrong. Telecom was really nice to assist. You can imagine it has to be anonymous. There can be no caller ID. All I need to know is the date and time. And it's really difficult to find an answering machine like that anymore. And they had to turn off some functions, but we got it. So we have a new machine. It's working fine. Received 2 since then, and we can see if we got a phone call. So, also work with technology services and upgraded our online hotline. It used to be, I'm not the most tech savvy, so I might not call it the right thing, but it used to be a program that was written that would send the complaint that somebody would put online. It would come to internal audit's email. We had a separate email only for hotline, and we were the only ones that received it. That system was not going to be supported any longer. So I worked with technology. Derek Nichols was wonderful, super helpful, wrote a new hotline for us using a Google document. It's beautiful. And it also provides us tracking. We used to have to manually track everything, and so now it gets plugged into a document for us. And I am the only person who has access to that. I give read-only view to my team, and we can act upon it in that way. It's working beautifully. So I just want to make sure everything was functioning, it's working, and we've received stuff since then. So on the horizon, on that note, when time allows, a remarketing of our hotline, I think, is due. Not only on our website to ensure that people know where to go and that we're out there. I think we're also sometimes confused with the Northeast tip line. We have 2 kind of lines going on. So that's on the horizon, something that I'd like to work on to ensure that people know what to use ours for. In closed session, you'll see that they may not necessarily know what to use ours for. And what needs to go to the other tip line. But just want to provide you an update on that. And the last 2, I don't know if you want me to go into them as much as I can, or just...
I think we can just go back into closed
I know
session.
They're definitely going to...
Okay. Yeah. But I wonder, do you want to go ahead and talk about the audit work in progress and future planning while we're out here?
Happy to, yep.
And then we'll just adjourn into... Are y'all okay with that?
Yes, I
Skip
think that's a
ahead
good
on
idea.
Just so you know what we're working on currently, purchasing card every year, we do a review of our purchasing card program. I think it was $7 million worth of transactions last year. I mean, it's a huge program for us. So that is in the final stages currently right now. My new-ish auditor is working on that. She's doing a wonderful job. You will have a report forthcoming, I would say, in the next 3 or 4 weeks on that. So she's just in the final stages. Wood Middle School, also, this was on the list this year due to having a principal change last year with Mr. Hensey, but they recently lost their bookkeeper. And so we have done this review, kind of moved it up in the year. So working on that currently, reports coming out on that as well. And then lastly, Tuscany Heights Elementary, same thing, key personnel change, principal change. And so that's what bubbled that one up as far as risk analysis. So those are all in the works currently right now. Once those are complete, we kind of assign and shuffle. So coming down the line, Reagan High School, again, key personnel, principal change. Every year we do CRMS and capital assets, so our inventory of all of our controlled resources. That happens usually kind of late fall, so that's on the horizon. And then Hill Middle School, same thing. We had principal and bookkeeper change. We had a double change at that campus. So between the three of us, we'll tackle those next. So just so you know.
Okay, so the board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code Section 551.074. And the time is 6:52. The board will now reconvene into open session. The time is 7:17. Item 8, adjournment. The time is 7:17.